Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's NASC Preferred Supplier webinar, Postbiotics, the next evolution in companion animal health. I'm Bill Parker with NASC, and I'll be moderating today's webinar. Before we begin, I have just a few housekeeping items. We'll be addressing your questions at the end of today's presentation. However, you're welcome to type them in at any time using the Zoom Q&A tool. You can also use the Zoom chat tool as well. Finally, if you have any technical difficulties, your best bet is to log out of the webinar, close all of your browsers, reopen a new browser, and log back into the webinar using the same link you used to log in initially. And with that, let me introduce today's presenters. First, Devin Vespi. She is Equine Business Development Manager for Cargill Health Technologies. Devin is responsible for leading growth opportunities for Diamond V in the equine space, helping lead the equine commercial strategy within key geographies. She works closely with commercial, research and development, and marketing teams to help create solutions to meet the needs of customers. Vespi is located in Murrieta, California. Before joining Cargill in 2021, Vespi served as Equine Territory Manager for American Reagan Pharmaceuticals. She became a dressage rider at an early age and still competes. Vespi received a BS in biology from the University of Florida. She also holds an MBA from Colorado State University. Also, Brian Hamilton. Brian Hamilton is the North American Business Development Manager, Companion Animals for Diamond V Cargill Health Technologies. This role is focused on partnering with pet food manufacturers to optimize their health and wellness solutions with Cargill's novel line of fermented postbiotics. Brian has over 15 years of pet manufacturer experience in various sales and category leadership roles at Nestle Purina and Halo Pet. Brian held various sales roles with Purina and Purina's U.S. business, including multiple roles in pet specialty and as a director of category leadership. Brian also has extensive international pet experience, serving as global director, category and customer and head of sales for Nestle Purina Australia. Most recently, Brian had led Halo Pet, a specialty business. Brian joined Cargill in early 2021. And with that, I will turn it over to Devin Vespi to start the webinar.
Thanks, Bill. Hi, everyone. I hope everyone is doing pretty good today. Today, Brian and I are going to talk about postbiotics. And really, it's the next evolution in companion animal health. So I know Bill already introduced us, but just again, I'm Devin. In a few minutes, you are going to hear from Brian. I'm going to talk about the equine side when it comes to postbiotics and our really exciting research. And then Brian's going to talk about the pet side. And in case anyone was wondering, that picture is of one of my horses. Her name's Benedina, and she's really cute. Next slide. Thank you. So today we're going to talk to you a lot about some really exciting research. But just to kind of bring it back a little bit, we're talking about fermentation, and the science and practice of fermentation has been around for thousands of years, intentional or otherwise. Day to day, we consume things that have undergone the process of fermentation, but we're really excited to bring to you and let you know what postbiotics are and the whole process of fermentation behind it and the research that we have done on our products. So just a little bit of background in case anyone's not really as familiar with Diamond V or Cargill. So Brian and I both are under Diamond V, and Diamond V is, well, we have Cargill, and then we have different business units in Cargill. So we're under the Cargill Animal Nutrition and Health business unit. There's 3 subsets. So there's Cargill Animal Nutrition, Cargill Health Technologies, and then Cargill Aqua Nutrition. We're under Health Technologies, and I would say maybe I'm slightly biased, but I think we're great. And really, our whole mantra and what we do is based on research and science. We want to be the leaders, the thought leaders, the forefront around health technologies and health solutions for animals. Diving into that a little bit more, Cargill Health Technologies, we really want to focus on the science of creating more healthy days for people, animals, and our planet. Our products are manufactured in Iowa, and we've been around since 1943. And science and research drives our business. It drives our decisions. It's really everything that we do day to day is based on research. We have over 385 controlled research studies and over 160 peer-reviewed publications. Just today, I mean, we're going to talk to you about some really exciting new research in both the companion animal space as well as the equine space. We also have more than 500 nutrition science professionals. And like I said before, our whole mantra and what we're doing is based on research and science.
So shall I step in here?
Yes, please.
Devin, we can kick this thing off. So if nothing else, hopefully you'll get a feel for the enthusiasm we have for all this, right? We really are enthusiastic about this whole postbiotic opportunity. So, you know, I think I'm getting a little older. I guess we all are as we speak, but I'm definitely feeling older. And I've been in the industry for almost 20 years now in terms of pet. And it really is an exciting time to be in pet. We've probably never seen the level of innovation, the level of new products being brought to the market. And this is across the supplement space, the treat space, the food space. And we're also seeing a consumer, and I'm loosely using the word consumer because they aren't the actual ones who consume the products, right? But these are pet parents, these are horse owners, and they're more educated and they're more thoughtful than they've ever been before about products that they want to select to improve the wellness of their pets. So I think, and I know Devin feels the same way, and we're driving towards a future that has postbiotics dead in the middle of it. And I told someone at Global Pet not too long ago that I think in a couple of years, probably before we know it, postbiotics may be as ubiquitous in pet as probiotics. And we'll talk today a little bit about all those factors. Now, the other thing I kind of wanted to position just on the front end, we really want to look at this postbiotic opportunity through the lens of brand owners. There are going to be folks on this call. I probably met quite a few of you a couple of weeks ago in St. Louis, but there are folks on these calls who manage a brand portfolio, maybe own a company, or trying to find ways to create some differentiation and add some value. So we really want to look at this pet and equine space through that lens of brand ownership. So what we're going to cover for the next 45 some odd minutes is going to be defining what postbiotics are, right? Just kind of setting the ground rules there. But then we're going to plunge into three separate areas. One, stability. Talk a little bit about some of the unique benefits the postbiotics bring, and it's a practical, real world benefit to all of those of you who manufacture in this space. Proven health benefits. At the end of the day, that is key because we want pets to live healthier, happier lives. And then I'm not going to spend as much time on it, but we're going to talk a little bit about the consumer-centric nature of this whole thing and the expectations of pet parents and horse lovers, right? And then we'll talk a little bit about just kickstarting the process, okay? So the way I kind of will kick this thing off, and I'll use this as an example. I went to Pet Food Forum. They had one last September in Kansas City. Some of you probably went to that. And probably half the people that approached our booth said, post what? What are you talking about? You mean probiotics, right? No, we mean postbiotics. It really was a new term. So a lot of our early work in this space has been just to build general awareness, right? So we'll define a little bit because I think we're really seeing some traction. When I went to Pet Food Forum in May, the difference was amazing. There wasn't a single person who came to the booth and said, post what? They literally came and said, okay, we've heard about postbiotics. Tell me more. So we think we're seeing awareness grow exponentially, and hopefully today's session will kind of add to that awareness and give you some more details that you can take back with you. So this slide, and again, this won't be a redo of Pet Food Forum, but for those of you who went, you may have seen our director of research, Dr. Sharon Norton, present a new study, a new Epicor iHut study that we had just completed. This is a slide from that study. And I'm not going to go through that whole deck on this call, but I do want to share this because one of the questions is, why do we need more biotics, right? During this study, we literally asked pet parents. So it was the first study we did that combined true scientific analysis of the microbiome and the changes postbiotics were causing. And they tried to marry that to pet owner perception, right? So we literally tried to tease these two things apart, but also connect them and find out what pet parents were thinking as their microbiota of their pet was changing, and those changes were taking place in terms of their health. So one of the opening things we asked was, out of the supplements that you currently feed your pet, what are the key benefit spaces and the key ingredients you want to see? And listen, there were established players that emerged, and you can see some of the percentages there and some of the names. So they are ingredients that we're familiar with: probiotics, antioxidants, there's vitamins in there, multivitamins, glucosamine. And again, a lot of those benefit spaces are very well established, right? So mobility, immunity, skin and coat, digestive health, overall health, and so on. But there was a whole host of additional, I'll call them with air quotes, biotics, right? Of which postbiotics were one. And there was a growing interest in each of these emerging areas. And along with that, there was growing interest in other areas of health benefit that we hadn't even thought about. And I would only encourage everyone, if you haven't had the opportunity to review, I think Pet Food Forum, for those that attended, you can still access this webinar. But we were actually caught off guard in that body of research we did, because pet parents, there was a real delta between what they expected going into the study of postbiotic use with their, in this case, dog, and how they concluded the study 60 days later. Some results in terms of anxiety and breath odor reduction that we weren't prepared for. So we're constantly learning, and pet parents want to see these things. So do we need other biotics? Yes, we do, and the industry is going to continue to innovate. And we're going to focus on postbiotics. And to make a long story short, we've seen huge increases in Google searches for postbiotics, up by 1,300%. This was taken as of middle of the year last year. And then we have all these examples, whether it's in popular magazines, popular culture, industry sites, like in the case I have up here, petfoodindustry.com, talking about postbiotics being a new functional pet food ingredient frontier. And then even for those of you who went to NASC in St. Louis a couple of weeks ago, Dr. Kopp's presentation on postbiotics, and it was a really strong one that kind of focused on the equine space. So those are things that weren't happening 2-3 years ago. So we think there's some real momentum in this postbiotic space. So some of that coincided with the first establishment of a definition. And I know different people may have different opinions about this, but we're firmly in the camp that this is very good news, right? So ISAP, the International Scientific Association of Pro and Prebiotics, defined a definition, right, to kind of rally our industry around a common set of parameters and thinking about postbiotics. The definition is: postbiotics, a preparation of inanimate microorganisms and or their components that confers a health benefit to the host. So what we did was we took a look at that definition, right, and wanted to map the postbiotics that we are producing at Cargill and see how closely they match this definition. And I'll give you I'll cut to the chase on this one. We fully embrace this definition, right? And here's why. So first, we are a preparation. We are 100% natural, yeast-derived, whole food fermentate, truly a preparation. And importantly, we don't have any living organisms in our product. Again, that's a key part of this definition, and we'll talk about that more in a little bit. But all of the yeast cells are fully heat deactivated, i.e. killed in our product. So there's nothing living that goes in a bag or a drum that goes out to a manufacturer to include in their formulations. It is a microorganism. In our case, it's a specific strain of Saccharomyces cerevisiae. And importantly, we don't extract anything. Truly, our postbiotics contain hundreds of bioactive compounds. So there's no single compound that by itself delivers health benefit. It is a combination of all of these bioactive compounds that does that. And that kind of segues nicely to these last two pieces, and I'm going to highlight them both because they go hand in hand. They need to confer a health benefit on the host species. So in our case, we have done the research and we continue to do research on our postbiotics. We found they're highly palatable, they support immunity, they support gut health, and a range of related outcomes like vitality and some that Devin will share on the equine side of the business as well. And I think the last piece I kind of comment on this one, and I chatted with quite a few people about this. In our business, it's easy because of humanization tendencies to take a product that works on the human side and just take the studies done in the human space and assume they will translate over. Number one, we don't feel that's right. We feel there is a difference between a dog, a horse, a cat, and us as people, right? So we need to do those kind of species-specific studies. And it's also critical to truly be a postbiotic. We need to show and validate those benefits in that particular host or that target host, in our case, horses and dogs. So we fully embrace this. And again, I've had conversations with manufacturers where they may have a little different take on it, but it's all positive in my book because we have a rallying cry. We have something to kind of orient ourselves around that the industry can embrace. So a couple of things that I'm sure most of you are familiar with. They aren't viruses or vaccines, postbiotics. Again, they're not isolated pieces. They're not, it's not an isolated component or a microbial component. It's the whole soup that comes out of that fermentation process. It's also not the same end result as supplementing dietary like pro and prebiotics. The reason is the range of outcomes you can get by having pro and prebiotics put in a formulation is going to vary. So you won't always get the same result. Postbiotics are not that. And then I probably, if I had a headline, I tell you, postbiotics are not living organisms. We do not have any of that in our finished product. So that opens up a whole range of opportunities for us in terms of what we can do in manufacturing and the kind of forms of product that we can go into. So one question we do get it's from pet parents, it's from horse owners, it's from manufacturers. I mean, how do you know the outcomes that you're citing are real? And the answer is because we can measure it. So in earlier years, and some of this is because of technology, computer power, and so on, but we didn't have the ability to sift through and analyze all this data, right? Now we have metagenomics that help us characterize populations in the gut. We have metabolomics, right, that give us some insight into those underlying processes and the levers we can push to affect what's happening in the gut microbiota. So between the two, we can understand everything we need to know about bugs in the gut, essentially, right? And the levers that are being turned on and off. So I think, we're not going to try to make this too much of a Cargill advertisement, but that is a core Cargill competency we have. We have a lot of very smart, big brain people, as I'm sure a lot of you all on this call are, who are helping drive forward what our understanding is of what postbiotics can do. So all in all, in terms of kind of this definitional approach, and it's funny, I kind of laugh because you see different metaphors used to describe postbiotics. In our case, you'll hear us talk about fuel, factories, and the goods. So in our example, prebiotics really are fuel, right? They're those substrates, fibers that serve as fuel for bacteria in the gut and probiotics to use, with the end goal to be that they will transform, using the biology of the animal, into metabolites that will confer a health benefit to the host. So essentially, that's what our postbiotics do through manufacturing. We produce in a very precise way a set of bioactive compounds, these beneficial metabolites, the goods, that are ready to go into the horse, the dog, the cat, ready to work, okay? So that's just a little bit of a definitional kind of approach to how we think about pre, pro, and postbiotics. So I thought what we would do, and this is a little different than we've done it elsewhere, but I've started to shift a little bit on how I talk about the core differentiators for postbiotics, because there are some practical real world benefits to using a postbiotic. And it was initially secondary to us because obviously we want the core priority for us is to make product that works, that has a health benefit, but we can't escape the fact that ingredient stability, the ability to give a manufacturer flexibility in how and when to deploy these products in their manufacturing process, that can be very valuable, right? And that benefit of not having living organisms to manage the complexity of really provides us some opportunities. The best way that I would kind of offer up to think about that is this. You saw this on the couple of slides ago, right? We have prebiotics as the fuel and probiotics are those factories. And that definition you see there is the ISAP definition of probiotics. They are live organisms that, when administered in adequate amounts, confer a health benefit on the host. And I think, probiotics are undeniably and undisputably a health enhancer, right? We know they help colonize the digestive system. They can encourage crosstalk between the immune system and the digestive system. So clearly they are good things to have, right? But we make the assumption that it's just a nice straight shot. I'll use those, they'll go, that's a highway, you see that arrow right there. It's a nice straight shot into the belly of, in my case, my greyhound that I have, and they will turn, using the biology of my dog, Hannah, into fermentation metabolites that confer a health benefit and deliver benefit, right? The issue is not whether probiotics work, it's how do you maintain the viability of those living organisms? Because as we all know, they only work if they're delivered in the quantities, in the viable quantities that are prescribed by the research in those products, right? So it really isn't a clean path. There is a circuitous route that probiotics need to go through from the function. There are different bugs, different kinds of activities, different interactions with fibers that yield decidedly different outcomes. The ingredient matrix can affect the effectiveness and the ability of those things to survive. And then we get to manufacturing, right? So what I don't have as a slide in this webinar today is we have a slide that's a picture of flames. Imagine a picture of hell, right? And Dante's Inferno has the inscription in the gates of hell, all ye who enter lose hope. Well, we joke around that sometimes that's what a little probiotic is seeing when it goes into pet food manufacturing, right? Those are hellish environments for probiotics to live. They are notoriously difficult to sustain the viability of a probiotic going through extrusion, high pressure retort. So if they get through that, then the product goes into storage, it goes on a shelf, it goes in a DC somewhere, it has to survive there. And then if it's managed to survive that route, you get to the mouth of the horse or the dog, and then you have the biology of the animal. So their level of stress, their health, their age, are they on medication? All those things can affect it, the viability of those probiotics. So our point is never to downplay the validity of probiotics, but it is to say, as a manufacturer, you all can't afford to guess. you can't afford the variance that we see in terms of outcomes. You could get anything ranging from 100% efficaciousness to zero efficaciousness, right? And what we're trying to do is eliminate that. So let's then turn to probiotics. So it's a little hokey, but we like to think the postbiotic path is kind of straight, consistent, and true. So again, there's our highway. Imagine that whole product mix that I told you went into this, all those ingredients, the yeast, the nutrient solution, the fermentation media, they all go through a fermentation process that is carefully measured, consistently executed, and it produces these products. In our case, it's True Equine for Devon and her horse community. And in my case, it's Epicor Pets for supplements and functional pet treats, and TrueImmune and TruePet for our pet food customers out there. What comes out, what's in those products is literally this mix of hundreds of these metabolites. They are short chain fatty acids, or minerals, vitamins, proteins. It also includes betas. But again, I just want to reemphasize, because I've had this question from folks. So what are your levels of betas, beta glucans? And again, whenever I hear that, I realize I've done a poor job of explaining what a postbiotic is, because it is truly that mix of all of these functional metabolites that we are measuring in our R&D that will confer the benefit that we're looking for, right? So again, it's that totality of all these ingredients that we're looking after. Now, I kind of said, so I think Bill said I started last year, so I've kind of been ramping myself up on the ingredient side of the pet business. And the fact that we don't have living organisms, for the non-scientist in me, well, that sounds like it's going to be viable, but we had to do more than that. So we've actually conducted some in vitro modeling to validate the stability of these products, right? So this is similar to the SHINE model some of you may be aware of, that is kind of a simulator of the human digestive system, but we're able to model out and develop an accurate proxy of whether or not we're retaining the fermentation activity that we want to see, right? When we push these things through those hellish environments of pet manufacturing, right? So the first green bar that you see here on the far left side of each of these chunks, these are, by the way, short chain fatty acids, right? So these are the ones we want to see high levels of production for that will confer some benefit. So that first green bar shows there is no postbiotic in that one. The light green bar immediately to the right shows that instantly, as soon as we put a postbiotic in it with no processing, right away, we see a nice bump in the production of those VFAs. So that's exactly what we are hoping happens in the animal, right? But then as we modeled extrusion, high pressure, and a retort, for those of you who are on the food side, retort, you can't put any probiotics in a retort and get it in wet food, right? We show that we didn't lose any of that VFA production, right? So viability stayed consistently high. So I guess my point in sharing this, data point is that we aren't taking it for granted that we're going to be viable. We're trying to do the legwork to validate that what we're saying isn't just our hunch or our guess, that we've actually proven this out. So really excited, because I think this entire area of stability is a huge practical benefit to a pet supplement manufacturer, someone that makes functional pet treats, folks on the food side of the business. You can have a product that will deliver health benefits, which I'll get to in a second, but will do so consistently and actually deliver the goods all the way through to the dog and have an impact. So that's the first reason why we're kind of excited. The second big chunk is about the research, right? So ultimately, we feel like postbiotics have to be able to prove themselves in the real world from a scientific perspective. So before we plunge in, though, I do kind of want to give a little bit of a history story. So Devin mentioned Diamond V. So back in 2017 and 18, Cargill, or Diamond V, joined the Cargill family, okay? And Diamond V, for some of you who may have worked in the livestock, the farm industry, you're probably aware of Diamond V. It has a good reputation, been around for a long time. And as Devin said, since 1943, they have been making fermentation products, right? But I'm not sure everyone's heard this story, because the story of how we came to these postbiotics is pretty interesting, right? So in the late 1800s, our founder literally started playing with fermented table scraps with farm animals and began to just kind of get this idea that, boy, they seem to be doing better when I feed them these fermented products. So after, I think he worked in the milling industry for a few decades, but when he retired, he started Diamond V, and really with the idea about making fermented yeast to benefit farm animals with their gut health and their immune health. So fast forward to 1998, we've done all the research over all those years, and a really smart he's smart, but also very observant, an HR person began to notice that it seemed like plant workers who were being exposed to fermented yeast were claiming fewer sick days than office workers. So literally they commissioned pilot studies, and sure enough, the test validated that the plant workers were demonstrably less sick and had stronger immune systems than folks that worked in the office and weren't exposed to those yeast fermentate products, right? So starting in 2005, Embria was established. So in my pet world, Embria is what gave birth to what many of you know as Epicor on the human side of the business. So from there, it has then branched out. Devin has a set of postbiotic products on the equine side, as I do on the pet food and the pet supplement side of the business. So this, I won't belabor this, but again, to say we've been doing this for 80 years. we've had hundreds of studies, as Devin has already articulated. We began to move into the human space once we kind of defined the benefits that it could bring to humans. Now have well over 15 studies on the human space. And from there, we then began to branch into these other opportunities in the companion animal space. So we had been working, and I say we, but it's primarily been our really smart directors of research and microbiome who have worked really hard to lead us through this path of uncovering what we can find out about the benefits of our postbiotics for companion animals and equine. So we don't really, it's interesting because when you look at that previous livestock space, the focus was always on immune health and digestive health. And we've all heard that, 70 to 80% of the immune system is housed in the gut. And so that was a clear starting point. But in that farm animal space, the relevant outcomes were really productivity, right? It's how many eggs could a chicken lay, how much milk could a cow give, and so on. Well, we don't have that in our space, right? So I'm not going to look at my pit lab mix laying on the sofa over there and ask her if she's going to lay eggs, right? So we had to come up with analogs for what does productivity mean in this space? And for us, it really means vitality, right? So we're going to talk a little bit about how we tried to turn some of these relevant outcomes into real meaningful advantages in the equine space and in the dog and the cat space. I should also say that while it says pet 13 plus, to date, those have all been studies in our dog world, right? So right now we're in the process of concluding our first major study in the cat space. So we're really excited about that. Hopefully in the next 3 to 4 months, we'll have some things we're able to share, but we are continuing to push the ball forward and uncover new things all the time. So what I'm going to do now is I'll give you a high level set of headlines for the canine space that we've uncovered to date. Then I'll kick it over to Devin, and then it'll come back to me so we can close it out. All right. So we like to think of things in terms of goals, right? Our goal is a happy, healthy pet. And I have looked at my dog. We're dog lovers. We've had them our whole lives. And I've seen them when my dog looks like what they look like on the left, when they don't feel good. You can tell. We can all tell. And our premise is this. There is a finite amount of energy that a dog has to expend. And the more of that energy is allocated to the immune system to fight off pathogens, the less that's available for vitality, for feeling good. So the objective is we want to maximize, create an immune system that's efficient, that does its job with a minimum of use of energy, and is able to allocate for that dog more of that energy to vitality and being happy. Now, you could argue to some people that might be too much energy on the right, but I like the look of it. And that's kind of what we're shooting for, a happy, healthy dog. So let's kind of kick into some headlines from some of the research that we've uncovered with our postbiotics. So the first area I'll focus on is immune health. So, and again, I won't go too deep here. And certainly if you have questions that when you want to dive deep, we can do that. But when we wanted to first kind of get some context around the surveillance capabilities of our postbiotics when they're used in a pet matrix, right? So MHC2 plus receptors, they're essentially these antennae, these molecules that survey the landscape, and they're looking for challenges. And when they find those challenges, they queue up the T helper cells to be alert, be on the lookout, right? So we were able to show factually in our research that we can increase the level of those receptors. So effectively, we're providing more efficient, better surveillance within the dog's body. In this case, it's a canine study, so within this dog's body. The second piece to that is always, it's great to surveil, but then how do you activate, right? So we did some TLR, toll-like receptor assays to just validate were we seeing an immune system reaction that was efficient, right? So toll-like receptors, they play a crucial role in recognizing pathogens and triggering the defense response. So TNF alpha, which is what we measured in this study, it's a cytokine. And even non-scientists like myself are unfortunately probably familiar with that word cytokine because really early in COVID and in other scenarios too, but really early in the COVID response, we were hearing this phrase cytokine storm. And what it essentially means is this TNF alpha and other cytokines would overfire, would begin to attack healthy cells as well, which is a bad situation to be in. So we don't want that. We want a measured response. So what we were able to show in our evaluation and research was we have a more moderated response, which makes sure that we aren't needlessly utilizing energy on these kind of health outcomes. I almost in some ways liken it to a dimmer switch. We want to dial up the lights on that immune system, but then we want to dial it down just as quickly. So improved responsiveness with the immune system. And then the last piece on this immune system on this page, hey, we know our bodies and pets' bodies are constantly under attack from oxidative stress. You saw in that established ingredient list, antioxidants were in the established list, right? So many people are aware of that. That can cause chronic disease, cancers, affects aging, and so on. So T-bars are a substance that measures oxidation. So we've shown use of our postbiotics in these formulas can lower oxidative stress, which again is a really good thing and really relevant to pet parents out there. Turning to the gut side of the business. So long story short, on that top chart, we can help balance the gut microbiota, more of the good stuff, right? We can help drive a favorable shift in populations inside a dog's gut, right? We also took a look, we measured these fecal fermentation outputs and looked at phenols and indols. And this was some of the learning that I had, right? So it's the fecal matter that gives dog poop its odor. Again, I guess it gives any poop its odor, right? And it can also be indicative of dysbiosis too. So I would never, and I laughed with a few folks at NASC a couple of weeks ago, I would never want to oversell this and try to say we're going to make dog poop smell like roses. We're not. But we can show a tangible impact that we can make on fecal odor and overall improvement in of dysbiosis type conditions in the gut. So this is good. It helps overall gut health to be able to lower those levels. And then the last piece, we took a look at stool, right? And happy to report, we can maintain optimal stool under multiple stress conditions. So we looked at unstressed dogs, we looked at exercise stressed dogs, and we looked at transport stressed dogs. And in all those cases, we found that we were able to maintain an optimal stool quality. And for those of you who formulated with anything that goes, that's going to affect a dog's gut microbiome, it's not always easy to do. So we were really pleased to see that we were able to maintain those optimal stools in all these different stress scenarios. So we have real strong outputs on the immune space, on the gut health, digestive health space. But again, I mentioned before, we're trying to look at ways that we can measure vitality. And I know there are lots of pet products that talk about you're going to have a happy, healthy dog. We really tried to put some data behind it. So that study I told you that measured stress, we literally put GPS trackers and activity trackers on dogs and had them work these distance-defined courses. And the title says it all. We found that dogs fed a postbiotic inclusive diet ran faster, and they demonstrated more activity on and off the track on that pathway through to the end. So I guess I'd make this point that sometimes I find myself getting in conversation, and we absolutely, postbiotics can play a good role in digestive health and immune health products. For sure, stop one, right? But I also think there are really strong vitality benefits. In this case, we tested this on Trumi in our food product, but there's really strong vitality benefits that can be had in certain scenarios that can add to overall, I call it the water line of health for an entire portfolio of products. So I guess I would encourage folks to consider functional health attributes and what you're gunning for, but also think of overall health and wellness as well, because I think postbiotics can play an important role there. So with that, I'll kick it, Devin, over to you, and you can take us through Equine.
Great. Thank you, Brian. All right, everyone, we're going to have a little equine intermission where I'm going to go over the equine research surrounding True Equine. So first, just a quick call out for horses. I mean, I'm biased as a horse person, but it's really hard when you feed a horse a feed or a supplement and they don't like the way it tastes. And one just great benefit of True Equine, besides all the research I'm about to show you and the fact that it's a postbiotic, is our palatability is great for horses. We have numerous studies showing palatability in horses. Next slide, please. Okay, so now we're going to go down to the research surrounding True Equine. I'm going to break it down into 3 different kind of buckets of research. So like Brian mentioned, on horses, we have 16 studies done right now. In these studies, we've seen benefits around horses' hindgut health, around stress exercise management, and then actually around their joints. And so I'm going to break it down like that. And I think one of the most interesting aspects of our product is really the horse people on this call are going to know there's a big conundrum when you own a horse. At any time, a horse owner is probably going to be dealing with either maybe a hindgut issue with a horse, and if their gut's good, maybe they have a lameness issue. And if they're not lame, that probably means you're riding the horse a lot and they're going to have some exercise stress issues. So I think it's quite beneficial for a lot of manufacturers that we have research in all these different buckets. So depending on the type of supplement or feed you have and how it's positioned, the research we have on True Equine can really help you go to that consumer or that horse owner. So first, I want to talk about the equine gut health benefits surrounding True Equine. So we have been in horses, horses have been getting fed Diamond V or True Equine since the 1980s. And there's some bread and butter benefits of our products in horses. And it's really these first 2 buckets you see. When you feed horses True Equine, we are shown to improve nutrient digestibility. I mean, it's a really relevant time to have this benefit because horse owners right now are switching hay, they're switching feed due to these increasing costs. So if you can kind of think it as a way to maybe position a product, is if a horse owner has to change something due to cost, when they're on True Equine, we can still help the horse gain more nutrient digestibility. We also have been shown to increase the VFA production in horses. For horses, VFA production is incredibly important. It provides at least 30% of the energy needed for horses. But what's really more interesting is the whole mechanism of action of how our product goes. And I'm going to apologize, I really like science, so I'm going to go a little deep into the science because I just want to explain kind of the mechanism of action because I think it's so cool. So when you feed a horse True Equine, their gut gets healthier, but actually how it gets healthier is you increase the amount of VFAs in their hindgut. When you increase the amount of VFAs in their hindgut, what happens is in these pictures you see here. Now these pictures are they're either fish or poultry. However, this process is highly conserved among species. And what happens is when you increase the amount of VFAs in a horse, you actually increase their intestinal villi length and density, which allows their hindgut to become healthier, more absorptive. But the coolest thing is 70 to 80% of a horse's immune system is actually located in their gut. So when you feed True Equine, you increase the amount of VFAs, which then makes their intestinal villi healthier. But because so much of the horse's immune system is located there and now it's healthier, the horse's immune system is healthier. So then when a horse is dealing with a challenge, which horses deal with almost every day if you're riding them or doing something, they're able to just have a better, more efficient response to this challenge. And so we're going to go to the next slide where we're going to kind of jump ahead to where this mechanism of action really can show in research. So we're going to first talk about the managed systemic stress side you see of this slide. I do want to call out this study was done at Texas A&M and has been peer reviewed and published in the Journal of Animal Science. What we did is we did a sub-maximal exercise stress challenge in horses. So we exercise horses for 2 hours to really stress them out. You know, 2 hours is a long time to exercise a horse, but it's also very relevant for all performance horse owners. Thanks, Brian. So we
Yeah,
exercise the horses for 2 hours, and then we measure their cortisol levels. Cortisol for horses, and really anything, is pretty important. But for horses, when they get stressed, you want their cortisol levels to rise, and then you want it to go away as fast as possible. If cortisol stays around too long for a horse, horses can actually become aggressive. They can increase their incidence of colic, diarrhea, ulcers, and even reproduce their reproductive benefits. So it's really important that process stays very highly controlled. And horses who are fed our postbiotic have a much better cortisol reaction than the control group that you see here. And I think this is incredibly relevant really for, again, feed manufacturers and supplement manufacturers, because every day a lot of our target demographic are really dealing with sport horses or horses that are getting exercise and stressed. And the fact that you can start kind of talking about it in this way with published research behind it, I think is an advantage. Going over one more, we did a study at the University of Florida where we tied horses' heads for 12 hours to mimic long distance transports. Another stressful thing for horses. And we saw some really exciting benefits in horses. So we saw that when you tie a horse's head for 12 hours, and we had a control group and then a group fed true equine, the group that was fed true equine had a much better immune response. But I think what's even more interesting, especially the way the market's going, is we looked at the effects of the horses and their microbiome. We have an abstract that's actually going to be presented tomorrow at ASAS from 1:15 to 2:15 in Exhibit Hall A, if anyone wants to see. In this abstract, we're going to have a poster presentation, and we're going to talk about how horses fed true equine have a beneficially affect their microbiome, has a more stable community structure and a robust functional potential with regards to carbohydrate metabolism. So these horses have a more stable microbiome, and they also really are able to deal with enzymatic functional potential in terms of their microbiome compared to the control group. We will also go for a full publication later this year. And lastly, we have some studies that came out last year, again at Texas A&M, that have been peer reviewed and published, showing that when horses are fed our postbiotics through equine, we help horses' joints. And I think especially in the supplement side, joint supplements are, I mean, that's the most bought supplement in horses. So it's pretty exciting that we have published research around this. One of the things we did is we did an LPS challenge in horses, which just means we injected something into their carpal joint or their knee joint to mimic acute inflammation. We then measured a marker for synovial joint inflammation called prostaglandin E2. Horses fed true equine had significantly less joint inflammation compared to the control group. Again, it's a different mechanism of action than a lot of the products we're familiar with right now, but I think it's a very interesting and a different way to think about helping horses' joint health in terms of supplements and horse feed. And then very interestingly, in the same study, we looked at cartilage synthesis and degradation in horses. And we saw horses that were fed our postbiotics had significantly more cartilage synthesis versus degradation of interarticular cartilage. And we also saw that the total response was less erratic in horses fed true equine. All right.
So
Brian.
I'll step back in here. So, so between stability, between the R&D that we've been conducting in the equine space and in the companion animal space, there's still more to learn, but we feel like we have a pretty strong grounding. And I think there's real opportunities if you are, again, are a brand builder, a marketer, someone who's trying to drive a business proposition out there. There's some ways that you can use postbiotics to truly differentiate in the marketplace. Now, this little section, I'm not going to take very long with it because, simply put, if you're in this business, you probably already know that we are sitting in a very hot, high area of interest for pet parents and for horse lovers, right? So Cargill does proprietary research every year. And one of those bits of research we do is about human trends, right? What we're going to see that may impact the food and the beverage part of our business. So the headline for the most recent one we did that was effective at the end of the year last year was, I want things as a human shopper that are good for me, right? Consumers are more proactive, probably thanks in large part to COVID. We're very aware of health. We want to be more preventative and take a personal approach to health. And people are taking charge of their own healthcare decisions, right? And that plays its way directly into this other piece of proprietary study that we do. Every year we do a survey of the American, the Chinese, and the British consumer marketplace. And I won't go through all the details in that box you see there, but clearly there is dramatically rising interest in immune support. So we know on the human side of the business that people are more interested in products that offer immune support. The third little block down there on the right speaks to the fact that they anticipate they're going to become more important in the future. And then the very bottom, 80% of the consumers surveyed noted that good gut health can help reduce their chances of becoming ill. So we know those human trends through humanization play themselves directly into pet. So the products that we tend to buy for ourselves, we think we want to buy for pets. We hope our research has shown that postbiotics truly will work in pets and in the equine space, but that urge is not going to go away. That humanization tendency is not going to go away. So the vast majority of US pet parents say that it's important to take a preventative approach to the health of their pet, and large significant amounts are paying closer attention to health and wellness and to the pet's immune system. I'm sure probably everyone on this call has seen that package facts survey that took place at the end of the first year of COVID. So we know that we're in a good spot. And ultimately, I guess this is the way I might wrap this piece up. If a pet parent, if a horse owner is shopping for products, whether they're looking for general wellness products, a product that will make their pet or their horse feel good and have vibrancy, if they're looking for more functional health, immunity, gut health, joint, as Devin just went through, and some others, if they're looking for natural products, if they're looking for non-GMO products, if you're a manufacturer who is focused on clean labels or no claims, as in the pet food, no grain, although I think that's pendulum's getting to swing back there. We feel like in all these scenarios, we're kind of in a sweet spot and present a real opportunity for pet brands out there to begin to differentiate themselves and set themselves apart from the competition with these emerging products like postbiotics. So that's the upshot. I won't spend a whole lot of time on this. You can feel free to contact us within this big Cargill group. I like to think we're a small but mighty team. We have a couple of researchers here with Brianna and Sharon. We have a good marketing and portfolio team. And then obviously we have our commercial team that is ready to assist. And I guess I'd also recommend, if you have more interest or want to spur some additional conversation, you can check out more about Epicor Pets, which again is our supplement solution. I don't have TrueImmune listed here. It's a feed level product that's AFCO approved, but you can certainly go to that site. And then on the equine side, we have trueequinepostbiotic.com. So don't hesitate to go there. And of course, you can always reach out to us. So that's it. Thanks so much for listening. And Bill, I think I'm going to kick it back over to you. If we have any questions, happy to make our stab at answering any questions that may pop up.
I think you might have touched on it a little bit, but is there research specific to feline that you have?
Yes, there is. And in fact, when I made the comment about TrueImmune, yes, we absolutely have that research. And so we have, if you're interested in that, we can send you multiple bits of documentation that talk more detail to our feed research as well as the Epicor supplement side of the business as well.
Okay. And actually, I think, another question just came in. What would AFCO require the pet product be listed as on the ingredient panel?
It's a great question. It's listed as yeast culture. So both of these products, and I'll say this from an Epicor standpoint as well, because Epicor is human grade product. I haven't mentioned that yet, but it is produced in a human grade factory. So if a pet food manufacturer is diving into human grade pet food, Epicor is a solution that will work and will be able to fit that bill. So that's another unique kind of capability. But in both cases, AFCO, it will be listed on an ingredient panel as yeast culture.
If
And I apologize.
if not, we can take it offline with him.
I was going to say, we'll go ahead and last question, is this available for liquid supplements?
Yes, yes. In fact, if you look at the human space now, you'll find various Epicor products that are in liquid products. It's soluble. So yes, the answer is yes.
Okay. This was very informative, and on behalf of NASC, we want to thank you all for joining us, those in attendance and those who registered. And once again, today's webinar will be archived on the NASC website, so you will be able to view both the presentation and the slide deck. So please feel free to share this presentation with anyone inside or outside the organization that you think could benefit from this knowledge. So thank you very much, everyone, for joining us today, and thank you to our presenters.
Thanks, everybody.